Elon Musk's inefficiency and Donald Trump's neglect will lead to a national security crisis in the US due to another decaying old man in the White House. The recent debacle at the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, headed by Elon Musk, has exposed the dangerous lack of oversight in Donald Trump's administration. The monumental blunder of reporting $8 billion in savings when, in reality, it was merely $8 million not only highlights incompetence, but also reveals a much deeper issue: the lack of transparency and the increasing influence of billionaires with personal agendas within the US government. This colossal mistake jeopardizes US national security and raises serious questions about Musk's suitability for such a high office. Musk's appointment to lead DOGE has been widely criticized, as his business record, though successful in certain aspects, has repeatedly demonstrated his propensity for improvisation and impulsive decision-making. In the private sector, such practices can cause internal chaos or lead to multi-million-pound losses that only affect his investors. However, in government, a lack of precision and control can have devastating consequences for the nation's stability. The false illusion of multi-billion-pound savings could have been used to justify disproportionate budget cuts that would impact critical sectors of the economy and national defense. Despite the scale of Musk's blunder, Donald Trump has taken no action to correct it, nor has he demanded an explanation. Instead, he has publicly defended Musk, claiming that his work in government is altruistic and selfless. However, this claim is an evident fallacy. Musk, with his vast business interests, particularly in China, finds himself in a troubling conflict of interest. Tesla has received billions in loans from the Chinese government for the construction of factories in Shanghai, which raises the question of how much his decisions within the US government could be influenced by foreign interests. This lack of control from Trump is not an isolated case. His administration has shown a worrying trend of protecting billionaires and corporations at the expense of ordinary citizens. Meanwhile, the economic crisis in the US continues to worsen. Inflation continues to erode the purchasing power of the middle class, the trade deficit has soared, and the new tariffs imposed on numerous countries are creating diplomatic tensions that could lead to a full-scale trade war. Trump's obsession with benefiting certain strategic allies, such as Israel, has led to exclusionary and isolationist policies that undermine the US's global influence. Voters who trusted Trump, seeking a strong and protective leader, now see how his administration favors the economic elite while the nation plunges into internal turmoil. The opioid epidemic continues to claim thousands of lives each year, and the national infrastructure continues to deteriorate without a clear modernization plan. Meanwhile, Musk operates with complete impunity, making decisions without effective checks and balances, and without being held accountable for administrative mistakes that could compromise the country's financial stability. The DOGE affair and Musk are but symptoms of a larger issue: the growing privatization of power within the US government. The lack of regulation and Trump's permissiveness towards businessmen with personal stakes in public administration is setting a dangerous precedent. The collusion between the White House and large corporations is weakening the country's institutional framework, creating an environment where political decisions no longer serve the public interest but the ambitions of a few. Moreover, the weakening of key government agencies under the Trump administration has created a power vacuum that is being exploited by other international players. China and Russia have taken advantage of the lack of direction in US foreign policy to expand their influence in strategic regions such as the Middle East, Latin America, and Africa. Trump's passivity in the face of these geopolitical maneuvers demonstrates an alarming lack of vision and leadership. Trump's populism and his tendency to downplay the country's real problems have left millions of Americans in a state of uncertainty. While the president remains embroiled in media spats and insulting foreign leaders on social media, the nation's structural problems continue to go unresolved. The border crisis, the decline in investment in education, and the growing distrust in democratic institutions are just a few of the warning signs his administration systematically ignores. In light of this, it is imperative that the American people demand greater accountability. Democracy cannot be held hostage by a handful of billionaires and politicians seeking only their personal gain. Congressional oversight and regulatory bodies must be strengthened to prevent individuals like Musk from continuing to run key institutions with absolute impunity. If Trump does not take urgent action to steer his government in the right direction, the US risks losing its position as a global leader. Inaction in the face of a national security, economic, and social crisis could have irreversible consequences. It is time for citizens to open their eyes and demand leadership that truly represents their interests, before it's too late. Elon Musk's inefficiency at the helm of government and Donald Trump's inaction in the face of his administration's mistakes are not mere individual missteps, but symptoms of a structural problem: the privatization of power and the lack of effective controls. If the US continues to allow billionaires with personal interests to manage key institutions without oversight, economic stability, national security, and democracy itself will be at risk. It is time for citizens to demand transparency and accountability before the decisions of a few undermine the nation's future.